Previously, on days 1 through 3 of our Arizona Strip trip. We've made our way from the scenic White Pocket in the Vermilion Cliffs, through the north rim of the Grand Canyon, past Jump Up Point, and to Turtle Weep Overlook, deep within the Arizona Strip. Today, we continue the journey as we head west through the most remote and roughest part of the trip, in and out of Grand Canyon-Parashant National Monument. We'll visit the historic Mount Trumbull Schoolhouse, Grande Gulch copper mine, and other great sights as we make our way towards the Nevada border.
After another night on the ground, we were up early. We scouted out surrounding area which was full of impressive views. We had time for an actually decent breakfast and we whipped up some eggs and sausage. Not long after, we were packed up and on the road. Today was going to be a long day with about 140 miles planned, all of which were off-road.
After leaving the national park, we turned west and began a rapid climb up Mount Trumbull. The road remained rough and bumpy, but the miles passed quickly. Near the summit of Mount Trumbull, we stopped at a historical marker on the side of the road. We were now at the Sawmill Historic Site, one of the earliest and one of the most productive lumber mill sites on the Arizona Strip. This site in particular was operated and used to create timbers for the nearby Mormon temple in St. George, Utah. Little remains of the mill site today.
Leaving Turtle Weep, Sawmill Historic Site, Mount Trumbull Schoolhouse, among others. Basically getting to the Utah line pretty close tonight. So we'll be nearly done with the Arizona Strip, so let's go.
We continued west and almost immediately began our descent down Mount Trumbull into the upper Hurricane Valley. The road got rougher again, but before we knew it, we had arrived at a major intersection with a small white building off to our right. We were now at the historic Mount Trumbull Schoolhouse, named for the nearby mountain we had just driven over. Originally built in 1918, the schoolhouse was used for church, town hall meetings, and obviously teaching by the residents that lived in the surrounding valley. It was founded by early Mormon pioneers and homesteaders who lived and worked in this extremely remote area. Perhaps the most notable family that lived in the area was the Bundy family. The school operated until the 1960s when the population dwindled. Unfortunately, the building was burned down by arsonists in the early 1990s, but was since rebuilt to serve as a testament to the history of the area.
We walked around inside and out of the building. Numerous artifacts remain scattered around the property, and it's truly worth a stop if you're in the area. After our visit, we continued west onto unimproved roads and back into the Grand Canyon-Parashant National Monument. The roads got rougher again, and our pace was slowed for the next 20 miles. After a brief detour on the wrong road, we finally made it to BLM Road 103 by about 2:30 p.m. Our campsite for the night was to the right, but there was something to the left that I really wanted to see. A brief stint of fast-moving road was followed by another section of slow and go. For 15 miles, we crawled through washed-out river bottoms, scenic canyons, and finally into the Grand Wash Cliffs. By around 4 o'clock p.m., we finally made it to our destination, Grande Gulch Mine.
Grande Gulch Mine is a historic copper mine that sits at the base of the scenic Grand Wash Cliffs. The mine opened in 1878 and was one of the more productive mines in the area. Copper ore was pulled out of the ground and transported to a railhead over 400 miles away in Salt Lake City. The mine was considered to be one of the richest copper lodes in the Arizona Territory, but its lack of easy access meant its success would be tainted. At its peak in the early 1900s, about 80 people lived here. The mine was shut down for nearly 20 years following World War I when the prices of copper plummeted, but it was reopened during World War II and large trucks were used to haul the ore out. The mine was closed down in 1958 following a fire and steady drop-off of mineral wealth. Today, the old bunkhouse, mine headquarters, 2 original dump trucks, and several other foundations remain. It is fascinating to see that the site left in nearly original shape following its demise. However, it was now getting late in the day and we still had a 15-mile drive back out to the main road and then another 60 miles or so to get to our campsite. So, we retraced the rough 15 miles through the upper Grand Wash Cliffs and ultimately ended up back on BLM Route 103. We headed north for several miles until reaching Route 1003. The road swung west and headed into Hidden Canyon.
Things got rougher and slower as we crawled along the wash bottom.
I am crawling.
What are you doing,
I am
man?
crawling. I swear.
What are you doing, dude?
Will you stop?
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
We passed through a section of Joshua trees and the stark beauty of the region was really something. It was around 6:30 when we had cleared the canyon and began our climb out. Things got rougher still. According to BLM map of the National Monument, we had 3 more miles of rough stuff. As it turns out, those 3 miles would take nearly an hour. We crawled along in 4-wheel drive along the edge of the cliff as steep drop-offs and large boulders meant that we could literally only go a few miles an hour or risk breaking something on the Jeep and getting stuck. It was around sunset, 7:30 p.m., when we cleared the shelf road and were back on flatter ground. There was still a problem, however. The road wasn't any smoother.
For the next 25 miles, we crawled along. Through canyon after canyon and numerous creek bottoms, it was slow and go as the hours rolled by. Fortunately, the Jeep had plenty of lights to illuminate the trail. Our frustration mounted as we continued the agonizing drive. We finally made it onto Route 242 and suddenly began a rapid climb. We were now in the Virgin Mountains. Our campsite was just a few miles ahead. We crested the pass and exited out of the Grand Canyon-Parashant National Monument. Of course, as if things weren't bad enough, We lost our GPS in the center console in the small hole where the e-brake is, so we now didn't know where exactly our campsite was. Eventually, we began our descent and found the campsite. The only problem, because it was so late, someone had already claimed it. We continued down the mountain and ultimately found a nice spot a couple miles down the road. It was now 10:30 p.m. and we had been driving for a solid 12 hours. Upset and absolutely done for the day, we set up our tent in the dark. We quickly got a fire going. Tonight's dinner was supposed to be a retry of the chili and cornbread we messed up on last year's El Camino trip, but because it was so late, we resorted to kielbasa leftovers and alcohol. Next time, we wrap up the final few miles of our Arizona strip trip as we head for our destination at the end of the trail, Las Vegas, Nevada.